UFC 317 International Fight Week is in serious trouble now, and it's all this guy's fault right here. JDM beating Belal Muhammad at UFC 315 has completely ruined the UFC. Right, ruined might be a bit far. I mean, JDM stylistically is so much better to watch than Belal Muhammad, but JDM winning has caused so many problems in the UFC. Let's just be honest. Number one being, I am not going to get to see my dream match in Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev. How selfish can JDM be? A guy who's dedicated himself to this sport. His lifelong dream was to become a UFC world champion, but he couldn't have, he's 28 years of age. He had plenty of time to win the belt. Why not just lose to Belal so I can enjoy Ilia versus Islam? How self-centered, how selfish of a human being can you be? That's JDM. In one word to describe him, selfish because of what he's done. But in all seriousness, we knew what was at stake at UFC 315. If JDM was to beat Belal Muhammad, we would see Islam Makhachev move up to the welterweight division. And if Belal Muhammad was able to beat JDM, Islam Makhachev would have been taking on Ilia Topuria. But we all thought it was kind of laid out after UFC 315. JDM was going to be taking on Islam Makhachev, and Ilia Topuria was going to be taking on Charles Oliveira. However, it seems like that actually isn't the case, and it seems that Ilia Topuria actually isn't going to be fighting on International Fight Week, because realistically, if it was going to be Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira, when we knew the stakes going into UFC 315, why would the UFC not have announced it right away after that? So something's going on here. It seems like Ilia Topuria isn't looking to fight Charles Oliveira, or isn't looking to fight now that it's not going to be the Islam Makhachev matchup, because according to Ariel Helwani, the UFC reached out to Alex Pereira to headline UFC 317 against Magomed Ankalaev in their rematch, but Alex Pereira wasn't available for that date. The UFC currently don't have a main event for International Fight Week, and that again is according to Ariel Helwani. Now, just completely off track here, another side note. Was the Pereira tweet real? Because Pereira's always ready to go. That guy, he's known for his activity. He's always ready to show up. He's always ready to fight. We seen him last week come out on Twitter and basically slate the UFC and say that he's considering retirement. Right away, though, he did say he was hacked. But is there something going on here with Pereira and the UFC? Was there a bit of beef? Was that actually true? And now Pereira isn't going to step in at UFC 317. He's going to take more time off. I'm thinking too much into this. I know I am. It's probably Pereira has a bit of an injury and he can't make his recovery in time to then get into camp to then face Magomed Ankalaev, because UFC 317 is coming up quick. Let's just be honest. But yeah, so basically the UFC now don't have a main event. Whereas going into UFC 315, it was told to us as the fan base, if JDM wins, it's Islam versus JDM. And if JDM does beat Belal Muhammad, it's Ilia versus Oliveira International Fight Week. I mean, this is what we were promised. This is what I thought. I thought, right, okay, I'm going to wake up after UFC 315 and I'm going to see this. Oliveira, Ilia Topuria for the World Lightweight title. Although there's so many other things going on with this, because before UFC 315's main event took place, now the UFC didn't come out and say they were going to strip Islam Makhachev, but Islam Makhachev took to Twitter to basically say he is not giving up the belt. So maybe there's coming a bit of an issue there with negotiations, because Topuria said he was fighting on International Fight Week, but he wouldn't be fighting for an interim title. So maybe now that Islam's saying, look, I'm not giving up the belt, and they're going to Topuria, you're going to be fighting for the interim belt. Topuria is now saying, no, I am not fighting for anything other than the undisputed title. Maybe this is where the confusion is coming from. I am still hopeful that we are going to see this matchup. I think Oliveira versus Topuria will be on International Fight Week. I think that will be the main event, because Topuria is basically in camp. He's made a whole song and dance about him being on International Fight Week, and there's no way now, after all that he's now not going to do it. But just a side note, I know Islam Makhachev wants to move up to welterweight. I know he's scared to fight Ilia Topuria, and the only reason he was accepting the matchup against Ilia was because he was kind of being backed into the corner. I understand that. I know he wants to move up to the welterweight division to try and become a double champ, which The double champ stuff doesn't work. I don't want to see a double champ in the UFC again. It doesn't work. And for people saying, well, if Islam moves up and fights JDM now, wins that belt, he can still come back down and face Ilia Topuria. No, he won't. Once Islam makes that jump to welterweight, he will never come back down to the lightweight division. We have seen it time and time again with double champs. Anytime the champion moves up and wins the belt in the other division, they never come back down. And Islam Makhachev is going to be no different. Islam Makhachev is massive for the UFC's lightweight division. If he gets the opportunity to kind of keep his belt and move up and win another belt in the welterweight division, there's no way he's going to want to make that cut again to 155, especially when he knows he's going in there with a stylistic nightmare for him, because in my opinion that's what Ilia Topuria is. We will never see Islam back in the lightweight division, so we will not see this fight. I've kind of, I've sat up all night crying and shit like that, but I'm in the grieving period now in my life over this matchup, that we're never going to see this dream matchup. But another thing that I just want to say, JDM's taking a lot of damage in there against Belal Muhammad. Why not just make this fight for International Fight Week and then have Islam face JDM if he beats Ilia, which, newsflash, he won't. But why not just make this for International Fight Week and then say to Islam, fight Ilia International Fight Week, and then you can move up. Because this is always going to be looming in the background now, especially for Islam Makhachev, for his legacy. People are going to say that he did duck Ilia Topuria, and I understand Islam Makhachev has earned a shot at moving up. Let's just be honest. Islam Makhachev has got multiple title defenses now. He's the greatest UFC lightweight of all time. The opponents he's finished: Bobby Green, Dan Hooker, Volkanovski, Oliveira, Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira. It's a stacked resume. He's arguably top 5 already. So he does deserve the opportunity to move up. I completely agree with that. But JDM's face is all busted up. Just make this fight for International Fight Week. I don't understand why you don't do this International Fight Week, which is July. July, August, September, October, November, December. Have this International Fight Week. If Islam wins, then you have him fight JDM in December in Perth or something. We know the UFC are going to do that, or maybe they want to have Islam in Abu Dhabi when he tries to win both belts. But it's just a real shame. And now, after this, after JDM's fucking ruined the UFC by beating Belal Muhammad, I'm joking. I'm glad you done that work. We needed you to beat him. You are a much better fighter to watch, JDM. And I did pick you to win. I maybe manifested this, so this is maybe all my fault. I maybe should have been picking Belal Muhammad, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting what they do for International Fight Week, because it does seem like there is problems then with Topuria, because surely the landscape was laid out before 315, and if Ilia Topuria was on board with that, then why is him Oliveira not announced? Now maybe I could look like a complete idiot and Oliveira Topuria could be announced right now while I'm making this video. I don't know. But yeah, this is what's going on in the UFC at the minute. Pereira, does he have beef with the UFC right enough? Someone let me know in the comments below. Am I looking into this too much? I just think it's a bit... There has to be something to this. We need Pereira to come out and tell us why he's not taking this matchup. But again, UFC 317 is closely approaching. We don't even know what's on the main card really. They've announced some matchups like Paulo Costa, Kopylov, Manel Kape, Brandon Royval. There's a heavyweight matchup on there. I'm trying to remember what else, but this card is meant to be the flagship show for the UFC every year. International Fight Week is their WrestleMania. And they're scrambling right now. I don't know what they're going to do. If that Volk can't main event, I think he broke his hand against Diego Lopez. You can't have him in there. I doubt they do Pantoja, Kai Car France as the International Fight Week main event. You've got Sean O'Malley, Merab at UFC 316. Jones Aspinall isn't going to happen. John Jones is out filming an Ultimate Fighter show with Nate Diaz in Thailand, and he's getting a bit fruity out there already, so that's definitely not going to happen. Alex isn't ready to step in. DDP versus Hams, that's not happening. The welterweight title is just being defended. It really comes down to the lightweight division needs to be the main event of International Fight Week. I think the UFC chuck an extra mil on top of Islam Makhachev's already pay and just say fight Ilya, and then you can move up to welterweight. They should just go to they should literally just say to Islam, win, lose or draw, you can move up to welterweight and fight for the title. I know everyone would complain about that if when he does lose to Topuria and then say he was to move up, but come on. That there might be the only way to save International Fight Week. I don't know, there's a lot of stuff going on, but let me know your opinions in the comments below. What's going to happen for International Fight Week? And as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, and I'll see you all again in the next one.